What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about something that has kind of been bothering me. And all the time doing this channel, I try to avoid this. I would talk about it here and there, and I know some of y'all will hear it. But now, with all the new allegations and all the new information and evidence that's came out, I think it's time that I talk about it. And it has to deal with Aaliyah and R. Kelly. And basically, the gist of this video is that I wanted to say how Aaliyah and her legacy is more than R. Kelly. Aaliyah should not have to be always forced in conversation with him. Now, I know the evidence that came out had to do specifically with Aaliyah, but it seems like everybody jumps on the bandwagon to talk about that. And the thing that really bothers me is people, the publications and media are so quick to jump on that story, but when something positive happens for Aaliyah's legacy, it's not crickets, but it's less attention drawn to it. 60% of the publications that made articles about the Aaliyah, R. Kelly situation, fake ID, bribing people, all of that, right? 60% of them, when Aaliyah's wax figure came out, they were nowhere to be found. When Aaliyah's Mac collection came out, they were nowhere to be found. On her death anniversary, her 40th birthday, nowhere to be found. Not saying that every year they gotta say something about Aaliyah's birthday or her death anniversary, but it's real funny how these publications pick and choose what they want to talk about. And we all know the story of how when Aaliyah first came out in 1994, her debut album was put together by who else? R. Kelly. He wrote and produced the whole album. And who's the one that put this together? Who really put this together? Aaliyah's own uncle, Barry Hankerson. The same one who don't want to release her music now and has all these legal troubles around it. But not only with Aaliyah, but with other artists as well, like Toni Braxton and JoJo. Back on the topic of Aaliyah's first album, we all know all the controversy that came with that album. While that was a dope album, it would later come out with the marriage license and things like that. And people, will come to realize that Aaliyah and R. Kelly were closer than they really let on. And because of that, there was a lot of victim blaming, and Aaliyah got blackballed. A lot of people don't know Aaliyah got blackballed. It was to the point where it was come time to do her second album. A lot of producers didn't want to work with her. Top producers in the industry, they didn't want to work with her because they felt like it would be too risky. They knew Aaliyah was a dope artist. She could sing, and she was real popular at the time too. But it was kind of like I don't know about that. They kind of just, some producers left under dust. Luckily, she would come to find Timbaland and Missy, who helped, bridge that gap, and they all made R&B history together. But it's real funny how people were victim blaming Aaliyah back then, right? And to be honest, some people will still do it now. And while we know 15 is an age where you know right from wrong and this and that, but 15 and R. Kelly was 27. Like, come on, there's obviously a big difference in the way your critical thinking is going to be formed. And let's not forget, Aaliyah was in the middle of, this was the beginning of Aaliyah's career. So if anything, this was Aaliyah's uncle and R. Kelly trying to do all this together. And Aaliyah's uncle knew a lot about this, but he stayed quiet. He's the one that put them together. He knew R. Kelly had some, nasty ways, but it didn't matter. He just wanted Aaliyah's album to be done and be successful. And while it came with all this controversy that in the end kind of hindered Aaliyah in a way. But luckily, the professional artist Aaliyah was, and her talent was able to outshine and rise above all of that. But still, looking back on it now, when I read these articles about Aaliyah and R. Kelly, in a way, I was kind of like, okay. Now, when I read the comment sections, I was like, okay, here they're going to talk about Aaliyah. They're going to call her fast. They're going to say, oh, she knew what she was doing, this and that. But it's almost like a turnaround, like a 180, how people are like, let Aaliyah rest, leave her alone. She has nothing to do with this. We get it. It's 25 years later. Justice for Aaliyah, but let her rest. She don't deserve this. Her legacy is more than this. And I'm like, wow. It's to the point where the public is like, okay, we get whatever y'all found that has evidence in all of R. Kelly's wrongdoings, but there's a way of saying it where you can leave Aaliyah out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way of, it has to do with Aaliyah, but there's a way of being respectful about it, where it's like, you don't have to drag Aaliyah down because it's like y'all so quick to drag Aaliyah down in these articles, but when something positive comes out about her legacy, like I said earlier, y'all there's no articles about it, nowhere to be found. Oh, Aaliyah and R. Kelly, some new evidence. 25 years later, And then another thing that bothered me is how in some of the articles they were just referring to Aaliyah as a singer, some singer, R&B singer, and it kind of bothered me the tone of the articles. Some articles were say more like, "Oh, R&B superstar Aaliyah, her selling career, things like that." But the way some articles were referring to Aaliyah, like she was just some rinky dink singer from the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't like that type of tone. They were just referring to her in like some type of, oh, past tense. Oh, she was some singer he had a thing with, la la la. I'm like, no, that's not acting like Aaliyah wasn't one of the most defining, iconic R&B artists from the 90s and early 2000s. We're not going to do that. They would just say like, oh, a singer who was 15 at the time. Like, no. So to end this, I just wanted to say that Aaliyah deserves better. Aaliyah's legacy deserves better. And while there's only so much we could do as fans, I'm like really encouraging the media and most people out there to really not take Aaliyah's legacy for granted. I just feel like we as a community, we need to protect Aaliyah's legacy because although over the past 3 years, more things has been happening for her, Aaliyah's legacy is still in a very fragile state. And I feel like we as a community, we need to be careful with how it's presented and be careful with what we pay the most attention to. Now, R. Kelly and his wrongdoings are getting the justice it deserves. And I'm happy that all the victims of his nasty ways are finally given their justice, Aaliyah included. But I feel like we can now move on from that. Aaliyah and her memory and her legacy can now move on from that to bigger and better things. That's all I have to say about it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can always see when I post. And let me know your thoughts about this. What are y'all thoughts about the way Aaliyah and her name and her legacy is always dragged in R. Kelly's mess? And the way the media is so quick to pick up on that, but when something positive happened for Aaliyah, they're mute. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.